Hey, Gabriel. I don't know what's happening. She switched me over here. I don't, and I don't know how to tell people over there how to come here. So,
Oh, I made it. I can hear you.
Oh my God. So here we are. I don't know. Okay, Facebook, and then we're getting the stream. Okay. She's now okay. So we have to wait on the other two people here. Okay. I sent them the email to the new stream here. We're waiting on two more people. If you're listening, we apologize for being tardy. We're having technical difficulties. She's working on it now, and I've sent them the link. So hang on, everyone. Hang on. Okay. We're just waiting on Elijah and Jessie. Okay, let me send it to her. Hang on, everybody. We're waiting on two more lovely people. I've just sent them the new link to the live stream. They should be joining any minute. I've sent the link twice. Sorry for the mishap. I'm not very technical. I don't have that capability. It's not my skill set. Here we go. We're waiting on one more. Sorry for the technical difficulty.
I can't hear y'all. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. You can't hear us?
You
I
can't
can
hear
hear
me?
you.
Okay, hold on.
Mhm. Mhm.
Hi, Jessie.
Can you hear us, Jessie? Good. We're just waiting on Elijah. One more person. Yes. Can you hear? Good. We're just waiting on Elijah. One more person. Yes. Can you hear? Okay. Okay. A little echo there. Elijah's fixing his sound, she said. So hang on. He's having sound issues. Okay. Well, we'll go ahead and get started. Dr. Nicholas can join us when he can. Hello, everyone. Today is November 20th. Today is the day that we call Transgender Day of Remembrance. I have two wonderful guests here that I'll let introduce themselves, and we're waiting on Dr. Elijah Nicholas to join us. I'll first start off with our first guest, Jessie McGrath. If you would tell us who you are, Jessie, your background, your affiliations, if you have any, and just give us a little bit of who Jessie McGrath is.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jessie McGrath. I use she, her pronouns. I am a prosecutor for the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office, and I've worked there for 35 years. I transitioned on the job about 8 years ago. And it's been an experience, and I've learned so much. I've just got off of the board of TransCan Work. I'm on the board of directors of the National Transgender Bar Association. I'm also on the board of directors of APLA Health, which is a federally qualified health center which provides care to underserved communities in Los Angeles. I thank you for asking me to participate in this today.
We'll pass it on to Gabriel Joffe next.
Hey, everyone. My name's Gabriel. I use they, them pronouns. It's an honor to be here in this conversation. Thanks, Toni, for the invite. And it's great to see you, Jessie. I'm also a board member of TransCan Work, and my professional background is in communications. And I'm currently based in Denver, Colorado, the traditional lands of the Cheyenne and Ute. And I live here with my dog Skipper, who may or may not try to interrupt at some point.
I see we have our final guest who's joined us, Dr. Elijah Nicholas. Dr. Nicholas, are you here? Can you hear us? I will introduce myself while we wait for Dr. Nicholas to become live. I'm Toni Newsman. I'm the chair of the board of Transgender Work. That's how I know these lovely two people here, Gabriel and Jessie. I'm also the director of the Coalition for Justice and Equality at NMAC, and I'm also the director for the Center to End the Epidemics at NMAC. And now I see my esteemed guest is here, Dr. Elijah Nicholas. If you would introduce yourself, who you are, where you're from, your affiliations, anything that you would like for everyone to know about you, and welcome.
Good afternoon, everybody. The first thing I would love for y'all to know is that I am so happy to be here and connected. Now, I am Dr. Elijah Nicholas. My pronouns are he, him, and I am the executive director of 100 Black Trans Men Incorporated. Our mission is to empower, equip, and elevate the voices, visibility, and representation of Black transgender men. And I'm excited about this conversation today. Thank you for having me, Toni.
Well, thank you. We'll start with Jessie. What does this day mean to you, Jessie? Transgender Day of Remembrance. You transition in the DA's office of LA County. What has it meant to you over the years, and what does it mean to you today?
It means so very much to me because it's a time that I use to reflect back on all of those who came before me, who fought for our ability to have the rights that we have today that so many people are trying to take away from us, and to get knowledge out there to folks about what it means to be transgender, and to remember those folks that have become victims to systematic violence against the people of our community. The very first murder trial that I did as a prosecutor back in 1989, I believe it is now, was the murder of a transgender woman on Sunset Boulevard. And the defense tried to get a manslaughter conviction out of the case, offered to plead to it, and I thought it was murder. I stuck to my guns. I tried the case and convicted the defendant of that murder. And so when I look back on my career and what I've seen over it, and how there's this history of violence against people in our community, getting out and trying to be visible, trying to be open, trying to educate as many people as possible about what it means to be trans. I see this as a day that we can honor those who came before us. We can honor those who have had their lives taken from us through the violence, and to try to make a change in society, which I try to do every day.
Thank you, Jessie. Gabriel, what does this day mean to you?
I think the meaning of this day has changed for me over the years, but I think, in general, I appreciate having the ritual within our community to honor the memories of, like Jessie said, those that went before, and those lives that were unfortunately lost. I really appreciate that in recent years, it's kind of leading up to Trans Day of Remembrance, there's Trans Awareness Week, because I think that kind of educational and action component, I think, adds some meaning. But I think having this particular day, it's powerful to have a space for grief and mourning. I know for me personally, it's easy to just push things down. So to be in community, have that pain acknowledged. And for me, that kind of communal witnessing is the foundation for solidarity and to get to that place of resilience. So I appreciate being in community, whether it's in person or virtual as we are here.
Dr. Nicholas, what does it mean to you?
So I transitioned about 5 years ago, and honestly, TDOR means a lot to me. First, for me, it's a time of remembering, not just remembering those many who paved the way, who are no longer here with us, but also remembering those who lost their lives to senseless violence and still continue to lose their lives. It's also for me a time of resistance. And what I mean by that is it's a time of resisting the anti-trans legislation that is, running rampant around not only the country but around the world. It's a time to resist spaces that don't welcome trans and non-binary individuals, and it's simply a time to resist the old ways, ways of the past. And then finally, it's a time for reigniting what Marsha P. Johnson and all of those folks did, so that we could have this moment today. And I think that it's just awesome that we can stop and remember and reflect, and then resist in our individual and collective ways, and then reignite our push in solidarity, as Gabriel said.
Thank you. I'd like to go to our next question. Jessie, what are the challenges and injustices facing our community, in your opinion, in 2024?
Well, obviously, first and foremost is the incredible amount of anti-trans legislation that we're seeing push forward across this country, trying to eliminate our ability to lead normal lives. And so that's one of the things I'm focusing on. I know the National Trans Bar Association is starting to focus a lot on this, and getting out there and fighting these horrible bills that want to do nothing more than make it illegal to be trans, and removing access to healthcare, removing protections that we fought so hard for, and the rampant mis and disinformation that exists about gender affirming healthcare. There is so much misinformation, so much disinformation that is being put out there that makes it difficult for us to be able to fight back. And so being loud, being open, being visible, being in the fight is something that I see we have to do this upcoming year, because 2023 was horrible in and of itself, but I can see 2024 them doubling down. I'm originally from Nebraska, and in fact have moved back to Nebraska in response to their anti-trans legislation that they did last session. I actually moved into the district of the gal who authored most of that, because I want to make sure that she is not reelected in 2024. And so I am going to be spending this next year on the ground, in the trenches, fighting directly against these type of bills, trying to educate the legislators here in Nebraska and in other states about what it means to be trans, and that it's not something to be afraid of, and it's not something to legislate against, and it's certainly not something to see the hate that has been built upon over these last couple of years. So just our right to existence, I think, is what is the biggest obstacle we're facing in 24.
And I want to say thank you and kudos for you running for office. I think it's important for all of us, LGBTQ, especially trans individuals, to run for office. Take these people who are discriminatory out of office and put people who are fair and impartial for health equity for all. Gabriel, that same question to you.
Yeah, and I appreciate that Jessie brought up legislation, because I don't think it's a far stretch to draw a line between anti-trans legislation and the interpersonal violence that we are, and specifically the murders of trans people that we are remembering on this day. I think there's a direct line from that structural to that interpersonal violence. And so for me, especially as I've been involved in the prison abolition movement for quite some time, I think specifically about how trans people in the US are disproportionately criminalized and incarcerated. That's nearly 1 in 6 trans people are incarcerated at some point in their life. And that jumps to 1 in 2 for Black trans women specifically. So I think remembering those folks, and I just saw recently that if you're familiar with Raquel Willis, a trans activist and writer, she's hosting a podcast called Afterlives that I'm definitely going to be checking out, and I encourage everyone to. And that's lifting up the story of Layleen Polanco, who was a trans woman that died in solitary confinement at Rikers in 2019. So yeah, I'm thinking about folks like that, and just kind of invigorated to fight kind of that systemic violence that continues to take people away from our communities, whether it's just, physically removing them and putting them, in confinement, or the trans folks that have unfortunately died in confinement.
Dr. Nicholas, that same question to you.
Yes, the challenges that I see that are most prevalent today, really the most, the highest challenge, biggest challenge that we have as transgender individuals, I believe, is a lack of essential human rights across the board. We don't have adequate, basic human rights, and as a result of that. And I speak from the African American male trans lens, whose voice is not heard at all in many conversations. That's a huge challenge, right? And much of it comes because we don't have access to the ecosystem that has built America, right? So when you talk about equity from a large perspective or a global perspective, when you talk about health equity, racial equity, when you think about all of the intersectionalities that specifically we as Black transgender men bring to the table, that puts us at higher unemployment rates, we make less money. And as a result, when we talk about people of color, trans people of color across the board, we resort to alternative places to work, and that increases our risk and our vulnerability, and impacts the numbers that we see as far as trans murders. So it's all really intertwined, and much of it starts. Well, I'm sure we'll talk about it in the solutions, but those are the problems that I see.
Thank you. Now, the final question is, we've talked about the issues, the challenges. What are some resolutions, Jessie, you would like to see in 2024? You're going to run, you're on the ground, so that's a solution. Kudos to you. But what other solutions do you think are needed in 2024 moving forward?
I think we really need to push forward on our education aspect of educating the public about what it is to be trans, and the history of being trans, and how that's been erased previously, and they're trying to do that same thing again. And that I keep seeing incredible parallels to 1933 Nazi Germany, where many of the language that's being used by those who are opposing trans people are using similar language that was used in the early 30s and the rise of Hitler and Nazism. And I think we need to spend time going forward and educating people so that we don't repeat that history. I'm seeing it so much now that it's truly frightening. When you see the name calling, the dehumanization that is going on. And so many people don't realize that the very first Nazi book burning was the Institute of Sexology with Magnus Hirschfeld. And they destroyed the library that he had put together for 20 years about gender incongruence. The first sexual reassignment surgeries took place at his facility, and they went in and they burned it all and they destroyed it, and irreplaceable research that had been done. And we're seeing the same thing happening again now, the same type of targeted attacks against our community. So I think it's what I want to see is much more activism on the part of people in our community, much more getting out there, showing how we're just other people that have lives that are worth living, that we do some amazing things, that we are really incredible people, and just getting out there and being visible and working towards getting rid of this misinformation, this disinformation, and this out and out hostility and wanting to remove us from society and having the ability to participate in society. So I think this coming year, I want to see us all be joyful and showing trans joy and not trans, suffering, but to show that, so many people who, when they transition, they know that they're going to have a difficult time. They know that things are going to change, and yet people do it because the joy of living your authentic life is so much stronger than the hatred that comes, from people who don't understand. So getting that information out there, the trans joy, the trans experience that so many people are able to live, and the joy that we're able to show from being able to live our authentic lives, that is something that I think that can overcome that hatred and that not knowing and the fear that comes from that not knowing about trans people. This next coming year is going to be one that is incredibly difficult for all of us. It's something though, but I think if we band together and we do things like this and get out and we talk to folks, we can make a difference. And this is truly an incredibly impactful year coming up for us.
Gabriel?
Yeah, it's hard to pick just one thing because I feel like the challenges are many, but I think that also means there's endless opportunities for folks to plug in. For me, it was like a toss-up between gender affirming healthcare and employment opportunities, but then I realize a lot of times employment is how folks access healthcare, so I'm gonna go on the employment tip, especially as a board member of Trans Can Work. And personally, for me, getting a salaried job with benefits was my pathway to accessing gender affirming care. And as we see legislation attack access to that care, especially for youth, I think where folks work is really how they might access those resources. So, and as Dr. Nicholas pointed out, the employment rate for trans folks and kind of pay rates are much lower. So, again, I'll shout out orgs like Trans Can Work. There are others that also offer both work with employers and companies to help them become more trans affirming and connect them to trans job seekers. And then on the job seeker side, offering career support, helping them land those jobs. And I think even if someone's not trans, everyone can make small or big actions at their own workplaces to help it become more trans affirming. Could be as simple as adding your pronouns to your email signature or connecting with your benefits team to make sure the policies are that they do offer comprehensive gender affirming care, connecting with the facilities at your workplace to ensure there's gender neutral bathrooms. Often that labor lies a lot with the trans person trying to find what bathroom to use, or even, drafting a proposal to bring a training to your workplace. And I think no matter what the solution is, I think it needs to be trans-led, and trans folks need to be paid for kind of that labor, bringing forth those solutions. Yeah, so I'm hopeful, and there's a lot of work to do.
Dr. Nicholas?
Absolutely everything that Jessie and Gabriel already said, right? In addition to that, I would love to see an elevation, a collective elevation in consciousness and awareness in the U.S. specifically. And what I mean by that is a few things. Individually and selfishly, I would love to see us get some African-American masculine individuals in the political pipeline, because there are none right now, no elected officials on any of the levels, state or local or federal, male, right, identifying men. And what that does for us is eventually over the next couple of years, it helps us get in position to impact policy, right? policy and legislation. And secondly, I would love for us, when I say us, advocates and advocacy workers, to address the elephant in the room of the division between races and gender and organizations, for profit and nonprofit, and capitalize, if you will, maybe not the most appropriate word, but capitalize, maximize, probably is a better word, on our differences in our intersectionality across races and gender and sexes. And then, you know, across organizations, I would love to see us do exactly what NMAC has done with the Coalition for Justice and Equality, because I believe that there are more similarities than there are differences. And there are more resources when we collaborate than there are when we divide. And I would just love for us to see more of a united front as we go into the election period, so that we can get out and impact votes. And that's the other thing, is I would love to see people getting to the polls and actually voting, so we can impact policy.
Well, I wanted to thank all of the guests today. We will be airing this on TikTok, and the Coalition will be creating a website in January. And this will be our featured video for our Get Out the Vote campaign. I think all of you, the three of you, are fabulous. I've collaborated with you personally. That's why I invited you. You are collaborators. You come from a place of love, as I do. I am not afraid of 2024. We are winners. We are warriors. We will win. I cannot be defeated. This is my thinking. I've had this thought for 30 years as a trans woman of color, and my career has been to that effect. I refuse to be defeated. I refuse to be discriminated against. I am a winner, and I'm selected and made by God, just like every other American citizen, and we deserve equality. So thank you, Gabriel. Thank you, Elijah. Thank you, Jessie. Happy Transgender Remembrance. We are resilient. We are mourning, but we're also resilient today, of victory for 2024. And that's why I have two trans men today, because trans men are not highlighted enough in these conversations. There are 42 conversations going on today. There are hardly any trans men in those conversations. I met Elijah at the Coalition in Marino Del Rey at my first annual meeting. I've worked with Gabriel. I've worked with Jessie. Trans men has a voice, and they need to be heard.
Yes.
And we as trans women should be supporting trans men and gender nonconforming folk in general. I am a woman of color. I love women of color, but we also have to support our men and our male friends and our male associates. It's important. So thank you. Have a great day. And I appreciate your time. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Toni. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.